Greetings, my dear viewer. You're on the channel The Price of Cheating. The channel is for those who appreciate traditional family values and condemn adultery. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. The romantic comedy that my wife Lily and I had just finished watching finally ended, and it felt like an eternity had passed. I had drunk more beer than I probably should have, but when I collapsed next to her, she didn't seem to mind. Still, I couldn't quite figure out what she thought about the film. "I just don't understand, Alexander. How could the husband be so unforgiving, refusing to pardon his wife over such a trivial matter?" she asked, her face full of confusion. "Are you joking?" I snapped, my voice sharper than I intended. "That wasn't some small mistake. She cheated on him, Lily. Any wife who does that deserves consequences. It's completely unacceptable, no matter how you look at it. It's cruel and heartless." Lily sighed heavily. "A man who truly loves his wife would be more forgiving. Just because she made a mistake doesn't mean she doesn't care about him. It just means her feelings weren't strong enough. A wife who cheats shows that she doesn't respect her husband and doesn't care about the humiliation she's caused him, even if it's not visible on the surface. He will always feel less important in her eyes." "And what if she didn't mean for it to come across that way?" I countered. "Her intentions don't change anything, Lily. What matters is that she broke the trust, and there should be consequences for that." "That's ridiculous, Alexander. I can't believe you're stuck in such outdated views." "There's nothing outdated about expecting loyalty," I replied sharply. "Infidelity can't be justified. If the wife confesses before the husband finds out, maybe they can work through it. But if he catches her lying and she denies it, she deserves all his anger. Most husbands don't even realize what's happening until it's too late." "We're going in circles," she said, clearly irritated. "I'm going to bed." She got up and left, leaving me alone with my thoughts. Earlier that day, we had spent several hours wandering through supermarkets and sales. I hadn't minded tagging along with her. There was always something to catch my eye while Lily searched for her favorite old rusty ironing board holders. The more worn out they were, the more she liked them. We were both saving every penny, trying to make our dream come true, to buy our first house. Of course, it had to have a big kitchen where she could display her growing collection of holders. We had been married for 10 years, though we had dated even longer. She's short, slightly plump, and I often joked about her perfect hips for childbirth. We had grand plans to start a family as soon as we settled into our new home. All we had left to do was save up enough for the down payment. But now, that conversation wouldn't leave my mind. Lily had oddly defended infidelity during our talk. It was a subject we had never discussed before, and to be honest, it had never crossed my mind. But now the thought was stuck in my head. Most of the guys I work with keep their wives under control. And me? I'd always trusted Lily completely. I never doubted her loyalty. I had never cheated on her, and I couldn't imagine that she would cheat on me. But something about that conversation left me uneasy. It wouldn't hurt to dig a little deeper, I thought. Not that I really expected to find anything, but curiosity got the better of me. My job kept me busy from 5 a.m. to 5 p.m., and Lily worked from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m., leaving me with little time alone in the mornings. The next day, I finished early, around 10 a.m., and decided to stop by home. I didn't even know what I was looking for, but it felt like I was about to start some kind of secret investigation, like I was searching for hidden treasure. As soon as I entered the apartment, I was hit by an overwhelming, unfamiliar smell. It was air freshener, and there was too much of it. The entire place reeked of it. I walked through the rooms, breathing in, trying to figure out what had happened. Eventually, I made it to the living room and noticed the fireplace. The hearth was spotless, as if it had just been cleaned, and the bricks were still slightly damp with soot. If Lily had burned something to hide evidence, she probably would have taken everything else with her to work. But maybe she wasn't as careful as I thought. I rummaged through the garbage in the garage and found something, a plastic seal from our trash can. I emptied its contents onto the kitchen table, spreading out old newspapers. It was time to see what secrets might be hiding in plain sight, waiting to be uncovered. The burnt remnants were mostly soot and ash, though among them remained a few charred scraps of paper and scorched photographs. I wish I could say I found something meaningful in the wreckage, but I didn't. What I knew for sure was that she had deliberately destroyed these things so I wouldn't discover what they contained. The only conclusion I could draw was that she had something she wanted to hide, and after our conversation the previous evening, a growing sense of unease began to take root inside me. Lily had been the center of my life for as long as I could remember, and we had planned so much for the future. But now it seemed I had missed the signs, the subtle hints that had been right in front of me all along. There were parts of her life she had never shared with me. Suddenly, I realized I knew almost nothing about her work or the people she spent her days with. It had never even occurred to me to ask. But now she had my full attention. On my way to work, I stopped by an electronics store and bought 3 voice-activated digital recorders, along with extra batteries. When I contacted the phone company, they had no trouble providing me with call logs for both of our phones for the past 4 months. I told them it was for a tax audit, and since the request involved both numbers, it raised no suspicions. After reviewing my own calls, I destroyed the logs at the office, not wanting to leave any traces. It was the first time in our entire marriage that I allowed myself to think poorly of Lily. The thought left a bitter taste, but I couldn't shake it. That day, I came home a few hours earlier than she did, which gave me plenty of time to carefully hide the recorders. I placed one in the living room, another in our bedroom, and the third in the kitchen, making sure it wouldn't pick up the constant hum of the refrigerator. The next morning, I activated the recorders before leaving for work. By the time Lily got home that evening, dinner was already on the table. "Hey, honey, I made chili for dinner. I hope that's okay," I said, trying to keep things casual. "Sounds good," she replied. "Just hope it's not too spicy." Halfway through dinner, a thought struck me. "By the way," I began, "when I got home earlier, there was this strange smell in the house, kind of a mix of flowers and burnt plastic. What did you burn in the fireplace this morning?" She tensed, realizing she'd been caught off guard. Trying to brush it off, she said, "Nothing important, just some old papers and stuff from school." But I didn't believe her. "Why did you burn them?" I asked. "You could have just thrown them in the trash or shredded them. You cleaned the fireplace so thoroughly, like you didn't want anyone to notice." Her irritation became obvious. "Why are you making such a big deal out of this?" she snapped. "It was just old papers. Why are you being so paranoid?" I looked at her, keeping my voice calm. "They didn't look like school papers, Lily. More like letters and photographs. What did you really burn?" Then she lost it. "Are you serious? You went through the ashes just to accuse me of something, really?" she yelled, her anger boiling over. "Forget about it. You're doing the dishes tonight. I'm going to take a shower and go to bed. You can sleep on the couch." Lily had never spoken to me like that before. But then again, I had never questioned her like this before either. As soon as I heard the water running in the shower, I seized the moment to grab her phone and quickly recorded all the numbers from her speed dial, recent calls, and saved messages. I transferred her contact list to a file on my computer in just a few minutes. Sleeping on the couch didn't bother me, but the smell of lilacs mixed with burnt debris made it hard to breathe. The next day, I took a sick day. I left the house as usual, making sure to turn on all the recorders before I left. But instead of going to work, I spent the day at a cafe, just waiting. When I returned home around 8 p.m., I immediately sat down to listen to the recordings. Lily had made one phone call. "Things are getting a little difficult at home," she said. "No, it's not serious. He suspects, but he doesn't know what's really going on. He's becoming a real problem. I think I can manage. Friday seems like a doable deadline, most likely. See you then." I still didn't know who was on the other end of the line, but I suspected I wouldn't stay in the dark for long. What exactly was supposed to happen on Friday? That question lingered as I spent the morning at the library, going through her call logs. I could have done this at home, but the telephone directories available here were far more reliable and faster than anything I could find online. Of course, they were useless for tracking mobile numbers. I managed to rule out most of the numbers by matching them with known contacts or entries in her address book. But one number stood out. It was linked to a contact labeled MT. Not only was this number saved in her phone book, but it was also on her speed dial list. A second entry with the same initials pointed to a landline, Michael Taylor's number. I knew him, Lily worked with him, and we had met a few times. The last time was at a corporate event about 2 weeks ago. I recalled how Michael and Lily had spent most of that evening together, practically glued to one another. That memory made me uneasy, especially since Michael was there with his wife, a petite brunette who, like me, didn't seem to be enjoying the evening much. I began piecing together a timeline, noting every instance Lily called Michael over the past 4 months, as well as the times he called her. Oddly, there were no text messages from him. This morning, I was almost certain it was his number Lily had dialed. Despite the growing number of calls, I hesitated to jump to conclusions. After making copies of the call logs, I decided to head straight to Michael Taylor's house. I had nothing to lose, so I knocked on his door. Alexander Singh, right? What brings you here? Good afternoon, I replied. I was hoping we could talk. Please come in, she said, clearly surprised by my sudden appearance. This is unexpected. I feel like I'm at a disadvantage. She introduced herself as Isabella, Michael's wife, and extended her hand to me. I shook it, though my thoughts were elsewhere. And then, without warning, she struck me with her words. Alexander, I think it's time we talked about the affair between your wife and my husband. Her words hit me like a bolt from the blue. I hadn't expected this turn of events. She clearly understood the situation better than I did. I'm filing for divorce and plan to name Lily in the documents. I have enough evidence and I think we could help each other. Isabella, I'm not here to complicate your life. I only found out about this yesterday and I have almost nothing, just the call logs. Show me, she said more firmly than I expected. I handed her a copy of the records. She flipped through the pages with the precision of a seasoned detective, making notes and comparing them with the documents she had. The corners of her mouth twitched occasionally, as if she found something absurd in the situation. The deeper she delved into the details, the more animated she became. Finally, I interrupted her. Do you have anything you could share? Of course, she replied, sliding a few documents over to me. Here's everything I've uncovered over the past few weeks. In front of me lay 3 motel receipts, each carefully marked with a date, time, and location. All were from different motels, and the payments had been made in cash. This fool doesn't even realize I check his pockets every night after he falls asleep. I take the receipts and he's none the wiser. In his world, I'm practically invisible, she said bitterly, her anger barely contained. As she continued pouring out her feelings, her fury became more palpable, and I started to feel uneasy. Although her anger wasn't directed at me, the intensity of her emotions was overwhelming. The veins in her neck pulsed like those of a bodybuilder lifting weights, and I wasn't sure I'd ever seen anyone, especially a woman, so consumed by rage. Still, despite her fury, she remained focused. She made copies of the receipts and handed them to me. I hope this helps you, she said, though the fire in her eyes remained unquenched. I have more evidence if you want to see it, she said in an icy tone. Wait here. I have something that will definitely interest you. She stepped out for a moment, returning with a clear plastic bag in hand. Inside, I saw women's underwear. Does this look familiar to you? She asked sharply, holding it up in front of me. My eyes fell on the dull green bikini bottoms, which I immediately recognized from my wife's collection. I found these in Michael's coat pocket after the last office party, she continued, her voice full of bitterness. He searched the entire house trying to find them. He's been looking everywhere, in the closets, the car, but never once mentioned it to me. May I borrow them for a little while? I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. Sure, as long as you promise to return them, she responded coldly. Deal. The next hour passed in a whirlwind of anger and accusations from Isabella Taylor. She was relentless, speaking non-stop as if caught in a furious outburst. Several times I tried to escape the conversation, but something kept pulling me back in, making me engage again and again. Finally, when she said she needed to rest, I took the opportunity to leave. As I gathered my things, I heard her mention that Michael hated using contraception and outright refused to use it. Later that evening, when Lily came home, dinner was ready. My stomach had been growling for hours, as I had skipped lunch. But Lily acted as if nothing in the world bothered her, just as calm and composed as ever, as though she was untouchable. And then everything clicked, why I hadn't suspected anything before. After dinner, I cleared the dishes and served her a couple of slices of lime pie, her favorite, along with freshly brewed coffee. The house was completely silent. Lily, can I ask you a question without you getting upset? I asked cautiously, breaking the silence. Of course. Is it about the problem with the fireplace? She replied calmly. No, it's something else, I said, pulling out the gray-green bra that matched the panties I had seen earlier. Where are the panties that go with this bra? She barely glanced at it. Probably in my drawer. Why are you rummaging through my underwear? What's going on? You're acting strange. Can you bring them? I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral, knowing she wouldn't be able to. Lily didn't look me in the eye, instead staring at her pie plate. I could see the tension building in her face, her expression hardening. Finally, she responded, "Actually, now that I think about it, I threw them out last week. The elastic was stretched, and I didn't see any point in keeping them." I leaned toward her slightly. "But Lily, you just bought them a few weeks ago. How could they wear out so quickly?" Her face grew even harder. Her lips quivered, and her fists clenched in frustration. It reminded me of the same tense moment I had just experienced with Isabella. "All right, genius," she snapped, her anger boiling over. "What do you think happened to my underwear?" "Last week before the office party I saw you put them on," I began. "You were wearing this bra and those same panties. I remember how great you looked. But when we got home that night, you went to the bathroom and I noticed the panties were gone. So, tell me, where did they disappear to between the time we left the house and came back?" Her face turned to stone. "You're mistaken. I was wearing them when we got home. You just didn't notice." "All right," I sighed. "Then maybe you can explain how they ended up in Michael Taylor's coat pocket." I pulled out the bag, giving her time to process what I was saying. Her eyes widened, a look of shock flashing across her face. "Where did you get this?" "From his wife, Isabella," I replied calmly. "Why? Does that surprise you?" "You bastard!" she hissed, her rage boiling over. "Mind your own business. There's nothing between me and Michael. I have no idea how my panties ended up with his wife." "Is there anything else you want to say?" I asked, keeping my composure. She glared at me viciously, her hands shaking with fury. "What do you want from me?" "Just one thing," I said quietly, pulling out a folded piece of paper. "Here's a little questionnaire I've put together for you. I need you to fill out this form," I said calmly, sliding the sheet of paper across the table towards her. "I just need the dates and locations where you met other men behind my back." My voice remained steady, though it barely masked the storm of fury brewing inside me. "Let's start with this." Lily sat in silence, her gaze fixed on the paper in front of her. I picked up a pen and wrote down the name of the motel and the date of her last meeting with Michael. Below that, I added his name and wrote the motel name again, leaving no room for misunderstanding. Then I noted the date. "Here," I said, handing her the pen. "Finish the rest, Lily. Once you're done, we'll continue this conversation." She remained motionless, her eyes still locked on the paper, unable to move or speak. She knew I had every reason to confront her. "And one more thing," I continued, my voice growing more irritated. "I'm furious not just because you cheated, but because neither you nor he bothered to use protection. Cheating is one betrayal, but not even thinking about the consequences? That's a whole other level. Did you ever think about what you could bring home to me?" My voice shook with disgust. "Was it only Michael, or were you just as careless with the others?" I asked, sarcasm seeping into my words. She hesitated for a moment before mumbling, "Only Michael. He didn't use anything." The weight of her words hung in the air between us. Her admission hit harder than I expected. It seemed even she hadn't grasped the full scope of what she'd said until it was too late. This mistake confirmed everything I needed to know. Michael wasn't the only one. Before I could respond, she shoved the paper aside, nearly knocking everything off the table, and ran out of the room. The soft click of the bedroom door closing was accompanied by the muffled sound of her sobs. That night, I didn't go back home. I found the nearest motel, rented a room, and told work I'd be taking a few days of sick leave. Keeping my word, I returned Isabella's lingerie. She was unusually silent this time, her face tense and uneasy. I didn't ask questions, just left, sensing her discomfort. I checked into a small, run-down motel that rented rooms by the week, complete with a basic kitchenette. As I drove past our house, I noticed Lily's car was gone and went inside to grab whatever I could carry. I bought some essentials, dishes, utensils, a few pots and pans, and within an hour, I had settled into my temporary hideaway. It was surreal. Just a week ago, nothing like this seemed remotely possible. As I walked back to my car, I noticed Michael Taylor a few parking spots away. He was unloading his belongings, moving into one of the motel rooms. I smirked quietly. That bastard was going through the same thing I was. Either Isabella had kicked him out, or he had left on his own. In the end, it didn't matter. The outcome was the same. Shortly after, Lily's car pulled into the parking lot. She didn't see me or my car parked nearby. She and Michael spoke for a few minutes before heading into his room together. Thinking they would be occupied for a while, I took the opportunity to go back home and grab the rest of my things. I packed my car to the brim. My computer, camera equipment, portable TV, CD collection, and even the George Foreman grill, everything I could fit. As I was unplugging the answering machine, there was a knock at the door. "Mr. Singh?" I opened the door to find two police officers. "Mr. Singh?" one of them repeated. "Yes," I replied, puzzled. "Are you Lily Singh's husband?" the officer asked in a serious tone. "Yes, that's me. Has something happened? Is she all right?" "I'm afraid we have some bad news for you, sir," the officer said, his voice calm but firm. "Your wife has passed away." "No," I said, shaking my head in disbelief. "You must be mistaken. I saw her just a couple of hours ago. She was fine." "When did you last see her?" the other officer asked. "She was at a motel with Michael Taylor," I explained, still trying to process what they were telling me. "Mr. Taylor is dead too," the first officer added, his words hitting me like a punch to the gut. My mind struggled to make sense of it all. "How?" I asked, my voice barely audible. "They were shot," the officer replied bluntly. "Look, I've been here all day. I don't even own a gun," I protested, still in shock. The officer sighed heavily. "I understand this is hard to comprehend, Mr. Singh. Try not to take it too much to heart. There was a shooting. Mrs. Taylor opened fire on both of them as they were leaving his room. She fired, and then immediately called 911. When we arrived, she was sitting on the floor by the door, quietly crying. Are you sure you'll be okay? Or do you need someone to stay with you? No, honestly, I'll be fine. Thanks. Just a week ago, everything seemed perfectly normal. But now, everything had been turned upside down. I wanted revenge on the cheaters, but now there was no one left to take revenge on. I had become a widower. Lily paid a harsh price for her actions. All I could do was move forward and pursue my dreams, but with another woman. I hope she won't be like Lily. This concludes the story. If you like it, then put your powerful like and subscribe to the channel.